Bill on Conversations with Robin. Thank you for being here today.
It's my pleasure, Robin. I really love hanging out with you. I can't get enough of that beautiful smile. And quite frankly, you and I have a lot of the same interests at heart as far as the world and the direction for people.
Yes, yes. Especially after being on your podcast last week, I had a great time.
I did too. We actually had a great conversation
Yeah.
and we smiled a lot and laughed a lot and just had a good time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me introduce you to the viewers. Bill Correll is an experienced student of life, always interested in hearing more from people with similar interests. Prior to starting PDS Incorporated, Bill worked in a variety of industries and various manufacturing management positions and gained myriad skills as a leader, mentor, coach, and trainer. He is a serial entrepreneur, owning and operating several different businesses and volunteering on over 15 boards and commissions focus on maximizing human potential over the past 30 years. Over the past few years, Bill has become a master networker with affiliations with over a dozen professional businesses, facilities, products, service, green building, real estate, and chamber networks and organizations. In addition, Bill launched his successful podcast called Lighting the Candle, A World That Works. Recently, Bill and his team recorded the 100th episode. Congratulations, Bill.
Thank you. We're actually up to 126 now.
Whoa, wow, that's awesome.
It's fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you currently enjoy spending time with your grandchildren and your wife, Janet, and his extended family and all of his networking buddies. Bill, that's amazing. What a bio.
Sounds to me like a guy that likes to talk to people.
Well, that's the way that we learn from each other, right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Started life out moving around a lot. When my dad met my mother, he was in the Air Force. They fell in love, got married, had me a year later, and then moved around to Topeka, Kansas, and Cheyenne, Wyoming, upstate New York. And I learned how to make friends with people very quickly because we moved so much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just really been a wonderful thing for me because I didn't make friends with people for any other reason that I was interested in who they were.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always found that to be a desirable attribute in other people. And it's something I like to emulate too. I'm not interested in me giving you information as much as I am learning something about you that informs me about myself. I didn't know that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
all those things that are, when you get to be almost 70 years old, you should have a list of things that you've spent your time doing. And as far as I'm concerned, I always had a goal of being Obi-Wan Kenobi when I got to be this age, and that's playing out very nicely right now.
I love that, Bill. I love that. So now, how long have you been in the tech world?
Well, see, I was in the tech world before there was a tech world.
Okay.
And that's because in early on, back in the 1970s, I got involved with production and inventory control, which in those early days were manual systems. I literally planned the work week and production schedules for about 350 people on a white lined tablet with pencils and a calculator. And from there, we started doing some computerized stuff. And then I ended up leaving there and taking a job at an electronics company for it was telephony. We manufactured different types of key equipment for telephones, et cetera. And that we implemented a fully functioning state-of-the-art manufacturing resources planning software and hardware company-wide.
Mm-hmm.
So we really didn't talk about tech all that much in those days, but there was the whole mystery of what happens in that box, however the box, whatever size it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got an opportunity to start a computer company in 1989 with a friend of mine from high school, I said, sure. I'm pretty good at making things happen, talking to people. I'm pretty sure that I can learn what you're doing and be able to sell that to folks. And it turned out that I actually could do that, but I didn't know a darn thing about this flashing C prompt, on the screen from Microsoft DOS, right?
Yes.
Then I learned.
Yes. So did you was it a self-taught kind of thing, would you say?
Yes, from the software standpoint, very much
Hmm.
so self-taught.
Hmm.
And I would classify myself as because of the 5 different industries that I worked in: materials management, including worldwide laser manufacturing at one point. Um, Power user is a good word in terms of getting information out of a database. But the interesting part, as far as the hardware was concerned, there was a man who we were buying computers from, assembled, and he spent a Sunday with me. We started at probably 9 o'clock in the morning, and
Hmm.
we finished up about 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we built 5 computers together.
Wow.
He ran me soup to nuts, through all of the mechanical side of it. In those days we had these little jumpers that we had to put in,
Hmm.
where when things were booting up, so that they would go and look for boot information from each of the connected devices and all that. So with that Sunday, I basically took that information and then started building computers myself. And then we built, I don't know, probably a couple thousand of them back in the 1990s.
Wow.
Did I answer your question?
Yes. That and more. Well, have you always wanted to be in the computer field, or is it something that you kind of just fell into?
I would say it was probably one of the most delicious accidents that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
I was the right place at the right time. I had a reputation, as being this 20-year-old guy who worked his buns off, in a series of labor type jobs. I took a job on a third shift, local wire and cable manufacturer, being a material handler. All
Hmm.
I did was go around and put stuff in front of folks in front of machines so they'd have what they needed for their next setup. So I got promoted pretty quickly through all that. I left that company to join one where my wife worked. And again, my reputation through repeated service and showing up and being willing to do anything that they asked me to do, series of promotions.
Hmm.
And the next thing I know, they're building a department around me called production inventory control. They didn't have one before that.
Mm. So that was built just for you, or
Well,
you did it for
yeah,
yourself?
no, I'll tell you what, there's no advancement in life without somebody who is higher up and pulling for you.
Mm.
And I had my production manager, Ron Batista, really believed in me. And when Harry Kenworthy came to work at Rogers Corporation, he gave me some tests, sent me down to New York City. I had I don't know, 63 college credits. That's what I have now. And they wanted to know how I was wired, and if they spent money on developing my mind, would they get a return on investment? And so
Hmm.
I came back and they offered me this job as first production inventory control specialist. How's that sound?
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, so I know in your bio, you also said that you are a serial entrepreneur.
Yes. And what does that look like? Well, I've always done things to make money. I got my Social Security card when I was 5 years old in kindergarten. And I worked in, the lunchroom cleaning plates off for 40 cents an hour for 1 hour a day.
Wow.
So from there, going through childhood, it was a series of small businesses, I would say. I used to go and pick strawberries for 25 cents a quart and walk around and sell them to all the ladies in the neighborhood for 40 cents a quart, right? And they'd place orders with me for other things. And then I started selling bricks, cards, and all kinds of seeds. And then there was Fuller Brush. And so all through all those days when I was really working for other people, in high school, doing a series of different types of jobs, mostly in restaurants and what have you, I was cultivating communication skills with people and finding out how people who were genuinely likable
Mm-hmm.
um, got to be that way and what they did and how they made themselves valuable to other people. So at the end of the day, when I started my company in 1989 and then incorporated in 1990, the next thing we did is we started buying some real estate and investing in real estate uh, long-term tenants at first. And at one point we had 28 doors, which, was a full-blown business in and of itself by the mid to the late 1990s. I bought a manufacturing seating company from a really nice Korean gentleman named Chin Young Kim.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, I had those businesses going. And then we went to Florida, absolutely fell in love with Florida and made many, many trips there through the 1990s. We bought our first investment property in Florida in 2004 and went on to buy four more in the next year and a half to 2 years.
Wow.
So I had hobbies. I had a huge guitar collection at one point, so I turned around. I started reselling those, and same thing with gold coins and United States silver, all that sort of thing. So every hobby that I had, where there was some money and some knowledge that was involved with it, usually turned into some sort of an income producing area for me.
I see that. I see that. You definitely monetize off of that. I love that.
Yes.
That's amazing. You said something about communication between people and how important it is with connecting with other people. That was the takeaway that I got from it. How important is that between an entrepreneur and its employees, or an entrepreneur and its business? How important is that communication,
Well,
just in general?
in that domain, it's really important.
Mm-hmm.
I think just in general for human beings, it's completely important, and that's why we have the podcast called "Lighting the Candle: A World That Works,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's mostly about linguistics. But when I was in my 20s, I thought it was important for me to say really, really smart sounding things. You know, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's really smart. And what I found was that was limiting when I learned how to sit in meetings, because as my responsibilities grew in different companies, at one point I had probably 300 employees worldwide that were all reporting to me.
Wow.
2/3 of them were in different countries and different time zones. I mean, we're talking, UK, Germany, also Palo Alto, California, and then Japan, Tokyo,
Mm-hmm.
Japan. So I found that it was a lot more important to listen and allow the folks that were actually doing the jobs to come up with their own suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that got to be part of my winning formula, that
Mm-hmm.
I started to get known as somebody who could empower not only people at C-level from all of these different companies that we were servicing, but the folks that were in my department, where they were used to just being told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I went in and I basically, every job that I ever had, once I got promoted to materials manager the first time, I sat my folks down and said, I'm going to be cultivating several of you to replace me.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, that's my goal. Number one, my job is to make you completely successful. And if I am successful at that, I will either move up here or I will move into a more progressive set of responsibilities somewhere else, and you will be hopefully in a position to take my job.
Mm.
And I found that to be really, a good opening conversation with people, and that my door was always open.
Mm-hmm.
And folks would come in and they'd sit down and they'd say, hey, I've had this idea for a while and I haven't had anybody really give it a listen. Would you be interested? And I say, yeah, sure. Pull up a chair.
Mm.
And I had this little, like a gumball dispenser.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't put gumballs in it. I put dry roasted peanuts without salt. Right. And so people would come in and they'd have some peanuts and we'd sit and talk, and that worked really, really well, for quite a long time. So does that answer your question about
Yeah.
employer-employee relationship.
Yes.
I never looked at anybody who worked for me as working for me. They worked
Mm-hmm.
with me, and my job
Mm-hmm.
was to make their jobs as easy as possible so they could be famous.
Yes. That's so important. I love that. That's important because, if they're successful, then you're successful. It works hand in hand.
Yes, and that's
Mm-hmm.
something to be known for, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not somebody who takes credit for other people's hard work and their breakthroughs,
Mm-hmm.
but someone who gets known for, if you go to work for this guy, you're going to grow like a weed in your job, and you're probably going to learn some things about life too.
Yes, yes, yeah. So that actually, I don't know if that maybe answers that next question that I have. What is your biggest takeaway as an entrepreneur that you've learned?
Now, that is a thought-provoking question, and
Okay.
the biggest takeaway is I would say, although I formalized a lot of other businesses for other people, I mean, putting policies and procedures in place, and I did that in the early years of my company too,
Mm-hmm.
which is how we're doubling in size every year for 5 or 6 years and adding people and everything. But my biggest takeaway after all this time was that I probably could have done a lot more rainy day stuff. My intention with all of the real estate was that at some point they would all be paid for,
Mm-hmm.
and the rents would uh, provide us a lifetime income in
Mm-hmm.
retirement, or whatever that looked like. And what happened was, I did all that. I got everything, really, really well planned out and executed. And then 3 times in the last 25 years, the world has gone upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was, if I had done a few things a little bit differently and then maybe paid off some mortgages on some of the rental properties and then added a new one, instead of getting a bunch of different properties that I was into for a little bit of money and they were providing great income, um, I would say that I would have been smart to go find somebody who knows what I know now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had a few different people, and they were quite good. And there's things that you can learn in conversation, but there are things you have to do. You have to live through an experience to really get that muscle. So I would say I wish I had found somebody who knows what I know now.
Okay.
And I probably knew several. There were people that were instrumental in helping me buy my first um, real investment real estate. And at the same time, I probably didn't know the best way to get information out of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when I did spend the time with a couple of dear friends, I made a lot of money. And so my biggest thought there is that um, you and I learned, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
by someone making a suggestion to me and me not having a clue what they're talking about, but it's interesting. And then I will start doing some research. I'll start digging in, rolling my sleeves up. And that's what I've kind of done with crypto over the last 2 or 3 years. I have stayed away from it simply because I understand there's no intrinsic value. There's nothing behind it. There's
Mm-hmm.
not even confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we see these dramatic swings up and down. So I had to have done the research, or it would have been very tempting for me to take a position, and buy a bunch of crypto, and then just live vicariously through the ups and downs, that whole roller coaster thing. So I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yes. Well, because then too, you would not have known what to do, I feel like,
Yes.
so that goes on to my next question is, how important is it having a mentor or a coach or someone that has been in your position and successful, as well as have failed, so that they're able to teach you things as well.
Oh, I'll tell you what, it comes down to one question. What do you want to do with your life? I mean, what do you want to do with your life? And if the answer to that is, I want to be comfortable, I want to go on 3 vacations a year, and I want to, be up in debt up to my eyeballs, but having, all these really cool toys to show other people, which is what most people, settle for in life. They run their credit cards up, they do all these kinds of things, and at the end of the day, they don't have any net worth to show for it. So I'm finding these days that when I'm speaking with younger people, and I'm talking about, I call them, the kids that are between 25 and 40 years old, they don't have any interest. They think it's enough to show up for a job and get paid a lot of money right now and not worry about what the next 3 to 5 years brings. They don't have any and I want you to know I'm being very general here so that I can make a point, but not all people are like this. There's a bell curve in all situations, but many do not have any goal setting skills. They also do not have great relationships with either their peers or their superiors. So they're clearly missing out on an opportunity to leverage each other's smarts, energy, all that. So back to the question, a mentor for somebody who's up to something and wants to be accumulating knowledge and growing and maybe having some assets and increasing their net worth, it's everything.
Yeah,
absolutely everything.
Yeah.
So people are just not knowledgeable these days to what they don't know. And that whole area about success, and success being, things turning out for you, like you win the lotto and now you have enough money and you can do whatever you want to. That's not success until you've designed a journey that feeds you and keeps you, engaged in good times and in bad, where you just keep doing it. And when you're making money, you do it for nothing anyway, because it's just that much fun, And mentors they're a special breed of people. No two are alike. Oftentimes there were folks that I worked for, I was in their departments, or they were the ones that were grooming me to, that's where I learned how to promote my folks, by having them be ready to take my job at a moment's notice. That's what I felt like other people were doing for me in my early years.
Yeah. And it seems like you are doing it for other people as well.
Yes.
Pay it forward.
Yes. Yeah, I used to just pay it forward, and now I get paid for paying it forward.
All right.
Which isn't half bad.
Right. Well, as we are wrapping up, Bill, I do want to ask you some questions.
I'm all yours.
Who has influenced you the most?
This is going to be a team of people.
Yeah.
I will tell you that as a child, my dad was my hero. And as I grew older, he was still my hero, but I understood that he had limitations in terms of what he could provide for me in terms of, growing. I went to the University of Colorado and got hooked up with some childhood friends. We used to live in Colorado, and there was a man named Matt Steger who came out of the Army, World War II, and got a job as an accountant, working in a company. And 10 years later, he made an offer to buy the company from the then owner, and it was accepted. And he grew what was about $1 million company in the mid 1950s into a $35 million company by 1970. So he was a huge influence too. We used to have fantastic conversations, both while I was going to college there and after I started my business. I would call him every once in a while, and I'd ask him about things that I thought were going to be a big expense for me, and how would I be able to tell if it was worth it in advance, And so he would, share some ideas with me. Along the way, I did a lot of self-improvement learning, and I have to give a lot of credit to a man named Werner Earhart, although I never met Werner.
Okay.
And I never did the EST training. I started doing Landmark in 1992 when I was thinking about quitting my new company and going back and getting a job again because it was very hard.
Okay.
And so I learned that I could draw deep from inside of me to put courage where fear was, that I could change my state at any time. And so
Mm,
then along the way, you can come up Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins, these were all people that I would feed my mind with and to give me new impetus to go out and take on bigger and more disruptive and probably more scary things for the people around me, especially my wife. But yeah, it's a team. I'd probably fill a small bleachers with all of the folks that have put their thumbprint on my forehead.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think that everyone that we meet too, for me personally, has influenced me, where I know what I want to be like. I know what I don't want to be like.
Sure.
So I understand that it is a team because it definitely is.
Well, there is one more player. I mentioned her briefly, but back in the day,
Hmm.
I was working for a small company and I got called over to the owner's house at 8 o'clock at night to be told that he was promoting me, to general manager the next day, and that it was his intention to fire the general manager that was there. And I went home and I told my wife, I said, I can't work for this man. He's had 11 people in this job in the last 10 years. Okay. The clock will be ticking to when it's just not going to be me. Plus, he
Hmm.
wanted me to shut this division down up here in Connecticut and open, move everything down to Florida where he had another location. So I went home and my dear wife was there. And I said, I have good news and I have bad news. I said, I just got offered a big promotion in terms of responsibility. That's the good news. The bad news is I can't accept the promotion. I'm going to give him my notice tomorrow morning and start my company.
Mm.
And that was 1989. And do you know what she said?
What?
Just don't lose the house.
Yeah.
And that has been a guiding light for me for 33 years.
Mm.
And in the dark days, even the days when both of us were fearful,
Hmm.
I would just recite that as a mantra sometimes. I don't even know if she knows that still has so much power for me.
Just don't lose the house.
Just don't lose the house.
Hmm. Hmm.
We're sitting in that house today.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
We've had many opportunities to lose it, but we just haven't given up, right?
You didn't lose it.
We didn't lose it.
That's right. That's
Lose it,
right.
and she didn't lose it either. She's
Right.
there
Right.
now.
Well, who is the most interesting person you've met so far and why?
Again, this is kind of, I am a blessed human being in terms of the experienced, cool people that I have gotten to hang around with. And so I've got folks that I could talk about in entertainment. As a matter of fact, I got a dear friend who's out in Palm Beach, California right now, and he was the publicist for both Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon.
Wow.
He's in his 80s. He's a beautiful human being,
Wow.
and we met simply because I was leading this group of volunteers to reclaim our downtown with a downtown revitalization task force. And he saw my picture on the front page of the newspaper, which he was still getting in Palm Beach, California back in those days. So yeah, he was a bright star and is to this day. Um, like I said, I met a lot of people,
Hmm.
local media, television, newspaper, radio, all that sort of thing. I even met Leon Russell and several other, like the Allman Brothers back in 1972, and a lot of bands and that sort of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, and who would I say was I've met two presidents as well. Dwight Eisenhower, when I was at Lowry Air Force Base, Fitzsimmons Army Hospital, getting my tonsils out. And then later on, Lyndon Johnson came to Groton for the keel laying of either the USS Groton or the USS Ohio. I can't remember which one, but I was probably about 12 years old then. I ran out
Mm.
into the motorcade and waved into the car, and three Secret Service agents whisked me back off to the sidewalk where I was supposed to be. So, I don't know. There's so much material for storytelling.
Mhm.
Some of this stuff happened. You know what I mean? I mean, we all have our Forrest Gump moments, right? But I would say there were some wonderful human beings that just were generous with their time when I
Mhm.
needed someone to talk to. And it wouldn't necessarily be of a earth-shattering impact. Sometimes it's just somebody like a server, at a
Mhm.
restaurant, or my
Mhm.
bartender who
Mhm.
goes out of her way to make my gin gimlet exactly the way that I want to have it. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yes.
So for me, they're all great. I
Yeah.
hope you get that.
Yeah.
You too.
Well, thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. You have lived an interesting and still is living an interesting life, I feel like.
First landmark education class that I did, which was called the Forum. The forum leader stood at the front of the room and he said the following in exactly these words. He said to all of us, 90 people in the room, "You don't know your ass from a hole in the ground." And he repeated that 7 times, and people were getting visibly uncomfortable. What did I sign up for here, right? Well, I'm now 30 some years later, and I kind of get that I don't know my ass from a hole in the ground. And the neat part of that is that's not a diminishing or deprecating. It's a very empowering place to come from.
Mm,
The knowledge isn't the important part; it's the question.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know?
I like that. Yeah. What has life taught you so far?
Oh my goodness! To enter into situations and be able to set aside my prediction of the outcome. You know, I don't know how other people are, but throughout my life, it was very important for me to structure meetings, uh, experiences, vacations, all the rest of that with some kind of an intention. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
And if the intention was met, then I would feel like I did a good job of setting it up.
mm-hmm,
But now I kind of feel like, being smart about how things are going to turn out is the booby prize.
mm-hmm,
That kind of erases the opportunity to be in a situation and be totally mindful and appreciate the surroundings, just kind of enjoy what's there with all 6 or 7 or 8 senses that you and I may have. And to not only experience the moment in terms of these receptors, but also the feeling and where it shows up in my body, and being
mm-hmm,
kind of intentional of listening powerfully with everything in a moment where I'm really kind of concerned with how it's going to turn out.
mm. That's powerful.
Yeah, when I remember to do it, it's really great, Robin.
Because you still are human,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
this is very true.
Yeah.
I'm probably the most human you've ever met. We all are, aren't we?
Yes, yes. But it sounds like just being in the flow
Yeah.
of what is a presence.
Yeah. And where it seemed like I got paid for the longest time by being able to answer questions.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get paid for helping people ask better questions,
Mm,
the ones that move them forward in life, the ones that, um, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing, to sit with somebody and they tell me all the problems that they're working at solving. And the first thing I say is if you were able to solve all of those right now, what would you do next? And their answer is, I don't really know. I got my hands full trying to solve these problems. And I said, well, let's take them one at a time. And one at a time, we decide that's really not a problem that needs to be solved. You could like ignore that and get on with bigger and better things and start moving down the road.
Mhm.
And I call that a 5% adjustment. I work with really good people that are great at what they do, but they kind of lost their place in life, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
And they have gotten stuck with something that they feel like it has to be handled before they can move on. And it's very powerful in a conversation to have an aha moment on their part when I don't tell them, they say it out loud. Um, I've spent the last 3 months trying to get an answer to this thing. And at the end of the day, it's not going to make me more money. It's not going to make my business run better. And quite frankly, I'm not even that interested in finding out what the answer is. Almost everybody who's listening has those kinds of things going on in their life right now.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
when you can just say, all right, we're not investing any more time, money, talent, any of that stuff in that topic. We're going to go over here and try something where we can get immediate gratification and have a better life as a result of it.
Yeah. Life is too short.
No matter how long it is, it's always too short. I
You got
agree.
that right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what would you tell your 35-year-old self?
You're in the position that you're in right now because you put yourself there. Enjoy every minute. Make sure to stop and smell the roses. And when the Yukon Huskies go to the national championship game and you've got tickets to that game because you're a season pass holder, go to the damn game, Bill.
Mm.
Go, and take some time every once in a while to just recharge your battery and your wife's battery and your children's battery and now your grandchildren's battery. Because no matter what you do or what you build, you will never get any better time than with your loved ones and friends.
Well said. Well said. I love that.
There are many ways to answer that question,
Mhm.
and I think the one that impacts me the most is I've gotten more out of my friendships with the attitude of almost 8 billion people are my friends, many of whom I've not met yet.
Mm. Yeah. I love that, Bill.
Yeah. Thank you. I do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else more that you would like to accomplish?
Yeah, I'm having some fun playing this, Obi-Wan Kenobi role. I've got a couple of people that are really important for me to provide empowerment for, help them stay grounded,
Mhm.
um, clients and friends, and then
Mhm.
also my sons-in-law and my daughters and my grandchildren. I really want to be in a position that I can give them what they need, whether or not I'm included in the delivery of that or get any credit for it, if that makes
Mm.
any sense to you.
Mhm. Yes.
I just want them to be powerful in their lives. And I want them, when they have those moments of doubt, that they've got a way out of it
Mm.
and don't waste too much time, hanging out in fear and doubt.
Mhm. Yes.
And that's kind of what I work at providing, my clients when I do consulting type stuff.
Mhm.
Um, you know, some people call me Mr. Wise. They were calling me that before I had the beard.
The beard is just an extra touch on it.
Yeah, and I owe this to my daughter number two. Becky has asked me to grow a beard twice in my life. The first time she was 4, and I think I was 30, and it grew out to about an inch and a half. It was dark, like my hair didn't have any white in it at that point. But it that's all the longer it really got, and I had red highlights here and there, right? So then about 2 years ago, June of the first COVID year, we're on a call, and she goes, "Dad, why don't you grow that beard?" She says, you haven't shaved in a few days, and it's growing pretty good. Why don't you just go ahead and grow that beard?" I said, okay, might as well. We were not going out meeting anybody in person anywhere. So people got to watch my beard grow over Zoom calls, with all my networking that I continued doing with Zoom. And then all of a sudden, I was trimming it every week and a half or so. And it's like, wow, man, this is growing fast. I'm just going to let it go for a month. Well, it grew 2 inches in a month. And then I said, okay, so now we're going full on Gandalf.
I love it. I love it. So it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years later. And I mean, you have a pretty cool beard.
Well, thank you very much. That is a compliment that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
something cool about me. You know what I mean?
Well, Bill, I have enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much for coming on.
It is 100% my privilege and pleasure to spend time with you, Robin. And I absolutely love who you are in the world. I love your way, and I'm looking forward to doing great things with you in the future, hopefully conversationally and otherwise.
Thank you, sir. Same here.
My
Take care.
pleasure. Bye-bye now.
Bye bye.